Hello, this is Ruth Hollingshead, trustee for Sight for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News.
Sight for Wight Talking News for Friday the 25th of September 2020.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Islanders should expect 12 months plus wait for surgery at St Mary's Hospital. Patients could wait over a year for surgery at the Isle of Wight NHS Trust, it has been revealed. One concerned resident had been told the waiting list for orthopaedic surgery at St Mary's Hospital was 60 weeks long, more than 3 times the maximum waiting time, 18 weeks, as laid down in the NHS Constitution. The resident said, "The waiting list is growing weekly. Meanwhile, patients have to suffer in silence." A raft of measures are being brought in and considered at the island's only hospital, including extra scanners and more clinical teams. But the outlook for patients needing inpatient or day surgery is not bright. The Trust says patients could face significant delays due to the coronavirus pandemic, and there will be some people that will wait more than 12 months for their procedure. Claire Gowland, Deputy Chief Operating Officer of the Isle of Wight NHS Trust, speaking at a meeting of the Isle of Wight Council's Health Scrutiny Committee, said it felt as much as the patients do. She said, "We have undertaken a review of all patients with extended waiting times, and they will be prioritised by clinical order. But the 3 biggest impacts are social distancing, infection prevention and control, and maintaining the COVID and non-COVID flows." Elective surgeries, those planned in advance, were stopped at the start of the pandemic to allow the NHS to cope with the virus and treat those who needed it most. But the surgeries have been started again, but not at full capacity. Operation theatres at St Mary's are only working at 79% capacity due to infection control between operations, but the Trust is looking at extending theatre days and has confirmed it is bringing in clinical teams to operate over the weekend. The use of the mainland's private sector is also something some patients will be encouraged to consider in an effort to reduce the waiting lists. Chief Executive Officer of the Trust, Maggie Oldham, said at a board meeting they would encourage patients to take the offer. She said, "I want to reassure our community we are focused on recovering those services we were instructed to stop earlier in the pandemic. We do have backlogs, and I apologise to those who are experiencing longer waits for their treatments. It really is at the forefront of our minds that we do not want to return to some of the extremely long waits we have had in the past. It does mean some patients will be offered their treatments off-island, and I know that is met with trepidation and frustration from members of our community. We will do what we can here, but if we can work with our mainland partners to ensure our community does not have exceptional waits, we will encourage patients to have treatments off-island." A spokesperson for the Isle of Wight NHS Trust said it had restarted operations and outpatient clinics with staff working tirelessly to ensure people are seen as quickly as possible. They said, "We are doing everything possible to increase our theatre capacity. Keeping everyone safe during the pandemic means fewer people can be on the hospital site at any one time. Social distancing, the important infection control measures we have in place, and cleaning between procedures mean that it takes longer than normal for each operation. Our outpatient department is now open and running at 91% capacity. However, due to social distancing, we are not yet able to fully book clinics. If anyone has concerns about their care, we urge them to contact our Patient Advice and Liaison Service.
This is Brian reading an article from On the Wight. Nicholson Road application gets green light despite objection by Island Roads over major highway concerns. The planning applications for development of Nicholson Road Ride were approved last night, despite major highways concerns from Island Roads and the Town Council. Despite major highway concerns, the extension to the Ride's prominent business park has been given the green light. At a meeting of the Isle of Wight Council's Planning Committee, proposals from planning officers were approved to grant permission for the extension of Nicholson Road with 47 conditions between the two applications. Chris Ashman, the Council's Director of Regeneration, said this project played a key role in the regeneration programme and was not about building more soulless tin sheds, but helping to improve. He said, "It is about providing employment in places where people will want to work, in a high-quality natural setting that is in complete harmony with our UNESCO biosphere. Working with other stakeholders, we will ensure the homes, jobs and supporting infrastructure proposed in the area will be joined up and further enhance the island's offer to live, work and do business." The park has been approved with outline plans for a mixed-use community hub and business areas, which include the use of the space for offices, retail, a cafe, 15 flats reserved for key workers, a gym and general industrial areas. Speaking as the ward councillor for Ryde East, Councillor Michael Lilly said the whole scheme was half-baked, desperate and would haunt Ryde and its residents. He said, "Pushing the planning permission through to access funding is irresponsible. The future for Ryde looks bleak, with decades of eyesore, half-finished building sites designed for a pre-COVID world that time will pass by and put a nail in the coffin of Ryde's future." While councillors were in favour of the employment aspect of the development, more than one objection was made regarding the highway works surrounding the extension, including the junction with Smallbrook Lane and Great Preston Road. Public objections from the Ryde Society and Ryde Town Council, who officers wrongly said supported the development, questioned whether the infrastructure had been properly thought out, with Ryde councillor Phil Jordan echoing Island Road's recommendation for refusal, as it would go against some of the Isle of Wight Council's own core planning strategy. He said, "We are not against jobs being created in our town, but we absolutely must continue to voice our concerns about a sustainable and efficient transport network." Alan Wight, Highways Development Control Officer for Island Roads, highlighted reasons for refusal in his original report. which included safety concerns for the Smallbrook mini roundabout, the impact capacity of Westridge Cross, and the limited width of Great Preston Road. He said, "We have shown while the proposed layout of Smallbrook Lane offers an element of improvement, it still wouldn't be suitable for large vehicles, which we see as an increased potential of large vehicles moving through the route." Councillor Julie Jones-Evans said, "It almost pains me to say this, as this is a very good application apart from the highways issues, and I don't think we should shy away from them. We cannot just skim over the issue of Smallbrook Lane." Councillor Paul Fuller said, "We have experts looking at this, and they still don't accept the proposals we have before us. I fully support the principle of development. The issues island roads have are resolvable, and it's like we are running wild with this application without thinking of the consequences." Councillor Matthew Price said, "I'm a bit concerned that we are going against the view of island roads, but on the other hand, all the other developments, all the highway improvements will come forward to complement this. Thankfully, for once, we are looking at something that is virtually all employment and not building houses all over green space, putting employment into an area that much needs it." Councillors on the Planning Committee voted in favour of approving the development 8-4.
Marine mammals at risk from huge super trawlers. Island Observer, Iona. An island charity is predicting an environmental disaster if super trawlers continue to plunder fish stocks from our waters. Blues Seas Protection, based in Sandown, has reported several marine mammal deaths on the south of the island over the last week, including a harbour porpoise at St Helens. This follows the sightings of two Dutch super trawlers fishing off the south coast, the Africa and the Willem van die Zwaan, which can catch hundreds of tons of fish a day. Gary Oates, chairman of Blue Seas Protection, said, "The trawlers are operating around 15 to 20 miles off our coast, and it will affect our sea life. They're targeting pelagic fish, which live and swim in mid-ocean, like mackerel, horse mackerel and bass. They're scooping up shoals of fish, and with them, dolphins and other mammals. The dolphins swim with the shoals and feed off them, so they end up becoming part of the catch. The dolphins suffocate in the nets, and 90% of them are slit open, so they just sink to the bottom of the sea, hiding the fact they've been caught and killed. It's criminal. A small percentage wash up on our beaches, and we've seen an increase in this recently. In the last 50 years, we've taken 90% of the world's fish stocks from our water, and we could run out of fish by 2040. Last year, Bembridge, from Nettleston Point to Ventnor, was made a marine conservation zone. Yet these super trawlers are allowed to commercially fish in our waters. It's a ludicrous situation. A bit like allowing a shootout in a safari park. We just can't go on like this, and we have to raise awareness. With people saying enough is enough, it is the most important message to mankind. With no fish in our oceans, we will have a dead planet.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Oil planning consultation lawful, declares the Isle of Wight Council. The Isle of Wight Council has defended its consultation on the Arraton oil drilling application, after critics claimed it was inadequate. A motion calling for the public consultation surrounding the application to be withdrawn and reintroduced at a different time came before the Council's Planning Committee Tuesday night, 3 months after it was deferred by the full Council. Since July, the public consultation has ended but attracted more than 900 comments, with over 90% objecting to the application. When the motion was first submitted by Councillor John Medland, however, the application's consultation was live. Councillor Medland argued the current practices failed to comply with the relevant legislative provisions and asked the consultation to be reinstated at a time when the public could inspect paper copies of plans, physical attendance at meetings could happen, and a site visit be undertaken. He said, "It appears the current consultation procedure being followed is not proportionate to the potential impact of the development." Last night, councillors on the Planning Committee unanimously rejected the motion, following warnings from the Council's Strategic Planning Manager, Ollie Bolter. Mr. Bolter said these regulations were enacted to support timely decision-making and to avoid delays while maintaining public participation in the decision-making process. A number of changes were introduced, including the removal of the need to make documents available to inspect. These changes being introduced broadly coincided with lockdown restrictions easing, so officers felt there were no reasonable grounds to hold back this and other applications. Mr. Bolter said the implications if the committee supported the motion and told the officers not to determine the application would mean the applicants, UK Oil and Gas, could appeal the decision, which would lead to the final decision being made by the Planning Inspectorate off the island. Councillor Matthew Price said he understood why the motion was being submitted, but the committee would be absolutely stupid to accept this motion. He said, "To allow this decision to be decided off the island and be determined by someone else would be an absolute failure of the individuals on the committee." Mr. Bolter admitted the officers were some way off determining the application. Chair of the committee, Councillor Chris Quirk, agreed with calls for the meeting at which the application is determined should be held in person, but said it was not likely to come before the committee before December. It was also agreed a site visit must happen, as it was essential in determining the application. All but one councillor agreed to the site visit. Councillor Brian Tyndall abstained.
This is Den reading from the Isle of Wight County Press. Countryside Charity joins fight against Isle of Wight housing targets. The government's new housing plans are undemocratic and wrong, according to the Isle of Wight branch of the Countryside Charity, CPRE. Formerly known as the Campaign to Protect Rural England, the branch has spoken out against the government's white paper, Planning for the Future. MP Bob Seeley last week said he was against the paper too and would oppose any plans to see huge increases of housing built on the island. Alongside the white paper, the government is also consulting on a number of changes to the algorithm used to set the centrally determined housing targets. As a result, the net effect of these changes would be to increase the Isle of Wight's housing target to 1,045 per year. This contrasts with the 348 houses delivered on average per year on the island over the last 3 years. Commenting on the proposed reforms, Al Haig-Thomas, chairman of the Isle of Wight CPRE, said, "The government's proposed planning reforms represent a potential disaster for the Isle of Wight. In removing local democracy from the planning system, both individuals as well as councils are set to lose their right to object to specific developments. Planning should be both local and democratic, and voices such as the hundreds objecting to the destruction of Westridge Farm must be heard." Given both our unique island infrastructure constraints, as well as the nature of our externally driven housing demand, we've long argued that top-down targets are not suitable for the island. The new proposed method of calculating housing need continues to fail to account for the island's housing demand being driven almost exclusively from people looking to move here to take advantage of our already lower house prices. By setting unrealistic targets that can't be met, it's likely the supply of more affordable town centre units, most demanded by young islanders, will actually be reduced, as developers are able to cherry-pick only the most profitable greenfield developments under the government's presumption in favour of development. We're delighted to support Mr Seeley, who is standing up for the island against the proposed reforms, and welcome the Council's intention to join him in seeking an exemption from national planning policy. The Isle of Wight CPRE has set out a 5-point formal response to the government's proposed planning reforms. 1. Removing the right of councils, individuals and other groups to object to specific developments is fundamentally undemocratic and wrong. It is unrealistic to expect all individuals to become planning inspectors and scrutinise an entire local plan years in advance of a planning application being brought forward. 2. The resulting housing target of 1,045 houses per annum is an unsuitable and unrealistic target. 3. The standard method fails to differentiate between local and immigration-led housing demand and is fundamentally undemocratic. 4. Affordability as justification for increasing housing supply is misplaced. It is too simplistic to base affordability multipliers purely on local incomes. 5. These reforms will fail to deliver for young islanders, instead serving only to bolster profits of greenfield developers.
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from the On the Wight online news site, headlined, "All Isle of Wight train stations now offer Wi-Fi." The Isle of Wight, along with stations on the rest of the South Western Railway network, now have Wi-Fi available to customers. All 187 stations on the South Western Railway network, including at Island Line stations on the Isle of Wight, now have Wi-Fi available. A significant improvement compared to just a mere 5 stations with connectivity when First Group and MTR took over the South Western franchise in 2017. The upgrade by BT builds on other recent improvements delivered by SWR, such as its £1.5 million station repainting programme, further demonstrating its commitment to bettering its service at every stage of the journey. It comes as part of a 3-year SWR partnership with BT, which has already delivered the upgrade of 104 4G EE cell masts on SWR's network and will soon see 31 new masts built. These will be critical to the improvement of SWR's onboard Wi-Fi, something SWR and BT have made significant headway on, with onboard connectivity speeds increasing by approximately 23% since January 2019 across the 104 sites. BT is currently a year and a half into the improvement programme, with current developments focused on not spots, areas identified with limited or no mobile coverage. Commenting on the developments, Mark Hopwood, the SWR Managing Director, said, "People expect to be able to connect and access information at the touch of a button, and most industries are having to respond to this demand and update their services accordingly. Our passengers are no exception to this rule, and we want to provide them with access to a fast and reliable connection when travelling with us. Working in partnership with BT, we have significantly boosted the digital connectivity available on our trains and at our stations, and the plans to build new masts demonstrates our ambition to go even further. Sarah Walker, the BT Corporate and Public Sector Director and Enterprise Sponsor for UK Rail Strategy, said, "As part of continued partnerships supporting UK train operating companies to improve the digital passenger experience, we are pleased to be delivering this network upgrade for SWR. Whether passengers need Wi-Fi for work or leisure purposes while travelling, this enhancement to the digital infrastructure on board trains and in stations will ensure that people can stay connected."
This is Chris, reading an article from the Isle of Wight County Press. Affordable flats planned for former freshwater post office. Signed, sealed, not yet delivered, the former post office in Freshwater could become 7 flats. Sitting in the centre of Freshwater, the former Royal Mail sorting and post office next to Hearst has been on the market several times, but now the new owner wants to turn the building into flats. Applying to the Isle of Wight Council for planning permission, Mr. Stedman Lloyd is asking to turn the site into 5 one-bedroom and 2 studio flats over 3 floors, suitable for those looking for affordable rents. In planning documents, agents say it would suit young, single people and couples looking for independent living at low cost due to a lack of a garden or flat. After Royal Mail centralised its sorting offices, the company auctioned off the site, and it has since become a craft market, ice cream parlour and shop. Planning permission was previously granted to allow the building to be converted into 5 flats in 2018, but the schemes didn't go ahead. Now, new plans, with a new owner of the building, are looking to deliver a better outcome for the building rather than the previous plans or leaving it in its currently unused state. Planning agents said this scheme has the potential to bring to a successful conclusion the redevelopment opportunity created by the Royal Mail's relocation from the building many years ago.
This is Brian, reading an article from the Isle of Wight County Press. Hunt on for new Chief Executive for Cowes Harbour. Cowes Harbour Master Captain Stuart McIntosh has announced he is stepping down, and the Harbour Commission is to split the Harbour Master role by appointing its first Chief Executive. Deputy Harbour Master Ed Walker will step up to take on the post of Harbour Master, and the CEO position is to be advertised. Captain McIntosh has been in the role for more than 20 years. He made the decision to leave last year, and since then work has been underway with the Board of Commissioners to split his combined role to better reflect the development of the commercial side of the harbour and to ensure continued priority is given to safety and security. The Harbour Master will have responsibility for safety and security and will continue to report directly to the Board of Commissioners, who have overall responsibility and accountability for the safety and statutory duties of the harbour. The new Chief Executive will head up CHC's executive management team and will be responsible for the commercial and yachting services side of the Trust Port. The Commission will shortly commence a public recruitment campaign for the new CEO with a view to an appointment in the spring of 2021. Captain McIntosh said, "I have been considering and discussing with the Commissioners for some time my retirement. Never an easy decision, especially when you have had the privilege of playing a part in the running and development of Cowes Harbour. I'm not really keen on using the retirement word, as I am currently reviewing options and opportunities for the future, which I trust will include some warm weather and blue water cruising.
Highland holiday for majestic eagle. Isle of Wight observer, Iona. One of the 6 white-tailed eagles released on the island last year has taken a 3-month holiday, including a 2-month visit to Scotland, and returned home after her adventure. The female, known as G324, is just a year old and spent the winter on the island, but she took off on her travels at the end of May, and after a 2-day flight to Northumberland, she eventually settled in and around the Lammermuir Hills in the East Lothian. The eagle was released as part of a joint partnership between the Roy Dennis Wildlife Foundation and Forestry England. Stephen Egerton, project manager of Forestry England, who's based on the Isle of Wight, explained. She was in good company because there are golden eagles and kites in the area. As far as we could establish, her diet was mainly rabbit. Then after 2 months, she headed back south and returned to the island via Durham, Lincolnshire, Northamptonshire, Bedfordshire and West Sussex. She returned here last Wednesday, September the 9th. This was a huge round trip of more than 750 miles, but it was very positive that she's returned to the island. This is quite normal for young sea eagles. Last year we had some from Sweden in the New Forest. They usually spend a couple of years travelling and learning how to be sea eagles. And when they're around 4 or 5, they're ready to breed, having set up their home territory. It was interesting to see that she returned to the island where she's close to a male eagle. So the hope is that in the future they will mate and breed their young here or on the south coast. The survival rate of young eagles is quite low, especially in the first year or so. We only expect them to have 30 to 40% chance of getting past that time because they can make mistakes or find themselves somewhere with a lack of food. However, it is no coincidence that she's returned. They're primarily fish-eating birds, and in the sea and estuaries on and around the island there are plenty of grey mullet and cattlefish, as well as rabbits, gulls and other water birds which they feed on. We have a 5-year licence for this programme and can release up to 60 birds over that period. We started with our original 6 and then there are 4 of them left. And we recently released another 7 juveniles. Our hope is that there will be 6 to 8 breeding pairs in the south of England by 2030. These will then be able to link to the pairs in the Netherlands, northeast of France and the west of Scotland. It will accelerate the recovery of the white-tailed eagle in Western Europe after they became extinct in this area because of human persecution. The last known white-tailed eagle on the Isle of Wight was in 1780 at Culver Down, which is why we are here trying to reintroduce them again. The habitat around the island, New Forest, the Solent and Pool, is an ideal area in which they can breed and where food is plentiful.
This is an article from the Isle of Wight County Press, read by Terry. Waste collection crews go the extra mile across the Isle of Wight. Island waste collection crews are being given a big thank you this week for all their efforts during the coronavirus lockdown. The crews travelled a combined 128,500 miles, which is the equivalent of more than 5 times around the world. They have worked hard to provide the best service possible under the most difficult of circumstances. In total, they spent 83,732 hours on the road and each walked on average 25,000 steps per day, collecting and loading, recycling and waste. As part of National Recycle Week, all those involved in the island's waste and recycling service, delivered by the Isle of Wight Council in partnership with Amy, are being specially thanked for their tireless and selfless efforts during the ongoing pandemic. Islanders too have been praised for doing their bit, helping to recycle or compost 27% more at the roadside. Natasha Dix, the Council's Strategic Manager for Waste and Environment, said, "Recycle Week this year is an opportunity to thank everyone on the island for continuing to recycle, whatever their circumstances, and to celebrate the way we have all pulled together. There has been a positive leap forward in attitudes that we must capitalise on, so the island can do even better in the coming year." The Council, businesses and other organisations are joining in with a range of activities to highlight the importance of recycling. You can support Recycle Week by using hashtag #RecycleWeek, that's a capital R and the rest is in lowercase, on social media. Councillor Steve Hastings, Cabinet Member for Environment, Heritage and Waste, said, "Our community has already worked together to increase recycling on the Isle of Wight to 55.7%, boosting us from 111th to 36th out of 345 local authorities in 2019. This has been made possible by residents getting behind the message that the Isle of Wight recycles. We must also thank all those who worked tirelessly and selflessly to keep our services on the road during lockdown." Peter Maddox, Director of WRAP UK, said, "It's fantastic to see that despite everything that has been thrown at them this year, more people than ever on the Isle of Wight are taking responsibility for protecting the environment by choosing to recycle. This is something we can all do wherever we live, an individual action that, when performed by everyone, adds up to a huge change." The island's recycling and waste workers have been real heroes too. The recognition they received in the form of friendly waves, notes, cards and gifts left out for them is heartwarming proof of how the Isle of Wight has appreciated their dedication.
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from the Isle of Wight County Press, headlined COVID-19 Restrictions and What They Mean for the Isle of Wight. Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Tuesday outlined a series of new coronavirus rules in a bid to control case numbers across the UK. What are the new regulations? In work and hospitality, work from home if you can do so. In professions where this is not possible, such as construction or retail, people should continue to attend workplaces. Face masks should be worn by people working in retail, those travelling in taxis, and staff and customers in indoor hospitality, except while seated at a table to eat or drink. There's a 10 p.m. curfew starting from Thursday, that's yesterday, for bars, pubs and restaurants across England. All pubs, bars and restaurants must operate a table service only, except for takeaways. In sport and leisure, exemptions to the rule of 6 will be reduced, banning indoor team sport such as indoor five-a-side football matches. The planned return of spectators to sports venues will now not go ahead from October the 1st. There will be new fines for those who don't wear a face mask. Penalty for failing to wear a mask or breaking the rule of 6 will now double to £200 for a first offence. In education and worship, schools, colleges, universities and places of worship will remain open. For weddings and funerals, wedding ceremonies and receptions across England will be capped at 15 people from Monday, September the 28th. Up to 30 people can still attend a funeral in England for now. Boris Johnson says acting now means we can keep people in work, we can keep shops and schools open, and we can keep our country moving forward. Never in our history has our collective destiny and health depended so completely on our individual behaviour.
Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for Wight. This week we have seen 4 other organisations come to us asking us to make videos to promote awareness of sight loss. Our team are working very closely with members, volunteers and trustees to produce the videos, which will be available online soon for all of our members to view as well. We have also been and visited Hampshire Constabulary, as we have been working very closely with them to move forward their visual impairments protocol, which is going to come into force next week. We are also in the final stages of producing our October newsletter, which is going to print next week. This newsletter follows the August newsletter in the new format, where we have gone out to as many people as possible, asking members, volunteers, staff to all contribute to make a new style newsletter packed full of current and useful information. The newsletter also includes order forms for the annual diaries, which will be coming in for 2021. Although it does seem a little early to be thinking about them now, please do not hesitate to call us if you need any further information on sizes or availability of any of the stock. Finally, the newsletter will also include the raffle tickets for this year's annual raffle. I can't say how excited we all are, as this charity will be celebrating 125 years this November, and the Talking News will be celebrating 45 years and the Audio Library 40 years, so we have an enormous celebration to look forward to this year. Thank you very much for listening to our Talking News, and stay safe.
Scaffolding news for week commencing 25th September 2020. Cowes area. Camios, 16 Bath Road, Rope Walk, Langley Road. Newport area, 10A Lugley Street, Santander, St James Street / Pyle Street, 13 Holyrood Street, Halifax, High Street, the Masonic Lodge, Lugley Street. Ventnor area, 56 South Street, South View, Grove Road, 32 South Street, 95 High Street. Shanklin, 95 to 97 High Street, Bar 64 High Street, 9 Langard Road. Sandown area, Wight City, Culver Parade, 3 Downs View / Perone Way. Freshwater area, Western View, Broadway, Totland, Wessex Cancer Trust, Mower Place, Afton Down House, 1 Gate Lane, On the Rocks, Bridge Road, Yarmouth. Ryde area, 38 High Street, 26 Union Street, 23 St John's Road. Skip news for week commencing September 25th, 2020. Ryde area, 35 Dover Road. Shanklin area, Beardsills, 53 Regent Street. Sandown area, Highclere, The Mall, Brading. Newport area, Lugley House, Lugley Street. Ventnor area, Enfield Cottage, Rectory Road, Knighton.
Sight for Wight would like to thank you for listening to this week's edition of the Talking News. We would also like to thank our volunteers for reading, and a particular thank you to the Island Echo, Isle of Wight County Press, Isle of Wight Observer, and On the Wight. A special thank you must go to Vectis Radio, who has helped us get vital information to our members.